The why of Umbraco and the future of Umbraco. So why does Umbraco even exist? I'd love to try to answer that. And it's actually really simple in the way that Umbraco started out as a vision to try to democratize CMS. So this is it's very difficult to see actually on the screen, but this is from 10 years ago. One of the first code gardens where we actually started to coin this idea about democratizing CMS. Back then, the tools were bloated, they were super expensive, and I really wanted a simpler way to do things. But over the years, I've been wondering about this idea of democratizing CMS because the CMS is basically it's just a tool. Does it even make sense to try to democratize a tool? And by the way, what is a CMS anyway? Um, it doesn't really make sense to talk about democratizing CMS. I think. Um, what we believe with CMS is we basically believe that it's a operating system for digital, uh, in the sense that just like you have iOS or Android on mobile phone, you need some sort of engine to run your digital presence, and we believe that the CMS is that. Um, but it also turns out that digital is much more than just a CMS. In fact, if you look at the digital MarTech landscape last year, this is, I don't know if you can even see it, but this is icons of tools in lots of categories that exist to power and facilitate the digital presence. Um, so that's a lot. Uh, and I have no idea how you would even start getting an overview of all these tools. And what I find quite frustrating is, does it really have to be that complex to operate in a digital landscape? Because if you have tools you don't understand, then there's absolutely no way you can get the freedom to do what you love. And mind you, there's very few, I hope, who have the biggest passion of using a tool. Hopefully people just use the tool to actually do something that they care about. What we try to do with Umbraco is give you the freedom to finally express who you are digitally. We mean that on the individual level, but also on an organizational level. There's so many organizations out there who really don't care that much about digital. They were never founded in a digital world. They never had any ambitions of operating in a digital world. And for many of them, you would just hope that there would be some magic box out there that you could buy and then it would be digital. Unfortunately, we all know that's not the case, even though some vendors might claim otherwise. Um, so when we have to go from this idea of democratizing CMS to something else, we needed to come up with a mission a couple of years ago, and we came up with the idea that at Umbraco we want to help you deliver delightful digital experiences. We're going to do that by making sure that Umbraco is friendly, simple, and social. I'm going to come back to what this means. But basically, this is our mission. This is why we're here. And our vision is that there will be, by the end of 2021, a million Umbraco sites running, and 10% of them are going to use our cloud platform. So mind you, even though a lot is going to be on the cloud platform, it's still 90% that's going to live outside of the cloud. So our DNA is open source, and if it makes sense for you not to be on our cloud platform, you should continue to do so. But we still do believe that a lot of people can benefit from that part. What's really interesting about this is that even though this idea of democratizing CMS is kind of weird, we still managed to somehow become the biggest Microsoft-powered CMS in the world. Uh, that's both in installations and in growth. And in fact, if you look not only on the tool, but on the ecosystem, it's also growing very rapidly. There's now 1,000 certified Umbraco partners out there, There's more than 5,000 certified developers, so that's people being on official training. Our ecosystem, our community is massive. Developers who help each other, who contribute to the product. And as Anders revealed at the Dutch festival last week, there's now more than 500,000 Umbraco sites running in the world, which is pretty cool. Uh, so what I find most fascinating about the last couple of years is that Umbraco has gone from what I believe politically correct is called cost-sensitive organizations. In Denmark, we would call them cheapskates. But it's people who love open source because it's free. So that was I guess our main USP in the original days. But what we're seeing more and more is what we call experience bias approaching the environment platform. So these are organizations who might be on their third or fourth CMS project and actually have learned that the magic in these projects doesn't come from the tools, but from the people involved. And what they need the most is a tool that set those people free. And Umbraco is a really great choice for that. So that's been really interesting. We struggled a couple of years ago when we were out in pitches against some of the bigger players in the market who could do everything. And we just said, no, we can't do everything. We're CMS. If you want to do a lot of stuff, you need some great people on your team. Because a great project is a little bit about the tool, a lot about the chemistry and talent of your team. Now we are seeing organizations who didn't take Umbraco back then come to us because they say two things. They say, one, either our organization is not ready for the tool we bought before, which I find kind of interesting. That they still have such a little self-confidence that they blame it on themselves and not on the platform they bought. But basically, these platforms that seem like it could do everything for them turned out they didn't work, at least for these organizations. And then the other thing they say is, well, maybe this product will work, but everybody on my team hates it. They don't understand it. It alienates them, which I find really interesting. So we are seeing really, really big organizations, huge government organizations, Fortune 500, etc., actually coming either back to the Umbraco platform or picking Umbraco for the first time because of this. So it's been amazing to see that development over the last both accelerating over the last 3 years, but just the entire journey of the last, let's say, 10, 12 years of Umbraco being this weird niche player to actually being one of the biggest platforms out there. Yet we're still a small company. Of course, I think the Umbraco company is huge. But we're still just around 45 people. But mind you, 3 years ago we were 10. And what we're doing the role of the Umbraco company is actually to keep up with the demand of the requirements that you come with, all while making sure that Umbraco is a sustainable commercial open source project. And it turns out it works. And what's the best part of the journey right now is that it's no longer just about the tool or the tech. It's about humans. It's not just about creating some software, but it's also making sure that we facilitate the open source project and that we help people get a great start on the Umbraco platform. And because we're now such a big company, we're starting to measure things as well. How many here is familiar with NPS or Net Promoter Score? Okay, how many have always thought, why do they ask how likely it is I would recommend this to a colleague on a scale from 0 to 10? Yeah, that's NPS. So we measure that as well, and our NPS currently is 72. And it might sound like a weird number, but this scale goes from -100 to 100. And 72, it's up there with Netflix and Apple. I think the only company that has a insanely high NPS is Tesla of 92. But who knows? Maybe we'll get there as well. But what's really interesting about this, as I said, is no longer just about the technology for the sake of technology. It's actually a more holistic approach to everything that's going on in digital projects. So we've kind of gone from the idea of democratizing a tool to the idea of democratizing digital business, which is really what our mission is today. Because no matter whether you no matter whether you want it or not, as an organization, you have to succeed online in order to succeed in the real world. And again, there's this odd thing that, that organizations might not even care about digital. We don't want to be digital. Maybe you're just a founder who created a furniture factory and somehow you have to be online. Maybe you're just an NGO and your knowledge is not fundraising online, but you have to do that in order to succeed in the field. And we really believe that anyone out there deserves the freedom to be able to express themselves, not only in the real world, but also online. And you cannot do that using one-size-fits-all platforms or solutions. You need a combination of a tool that does the basic things, and then a fantastic ecosystem of creative and curious people on top of that that can help you take your vision online. So basically, that's our why. That's why Umbraco exists. That's fine. But how does this work in the real world? One of the main things that says puts Umbraco apart from a lot of the competition is that from the very early days, we believe in what's called wisdom of the crowd. How many people are familiar with that term? So it gained a lot of popularity from a book 20-25 years ago called Blue Train Manifesto, but it originates from back in the ancient Greek, and basically the idea is rather than there's a few experts, the sum of people in an ecosystem will always be better than the few experts. And if you take that to a product company or a product development, then there's an interesting paradox in product development. Because I believe that the best products are created when someone scratched their own itch. That was how Umbraco was started. I was a consultant. I was working with smaller clients, and basically what I really wanted was a way for them to be able to express themselves without having to rely on me as a consultant. And because I was sitting literally next to them, I could see what worked and what didn't work. Uh, then as Umbraco grew in popularity, my connection were no longer directly with clients, but that was through partners. So what actually made Umbraco great, that I could scratch my own itch, I could help the people that I sit right next to. All of a sudden, there was a filter. And this is not special for Umbraco. This is basically how all product development happens. What you do is you try to send research teams to field trips, and you try to do interviews, you try to find ways to gather feedback from your customers, but nothing beats sitting right next to people and being able to improve a product. Um, Basically, what you end up is that you are out of sync. And what's really crazy about this is not only you end up, or maybe you're an expert. Maybe I'm an expert in Umbraco, but I'm not an expert in using it. I don't use it that much anymore. And I especially don't see that many people use it day to day. So what's crazy is, as a product company, you basically become out of sync with the people who actually use your product. Uh, On top of that, you have both external and internal pressure, not just from users, but from other people in your organization who believe something is very important. So what happens in product development is that you go from being totally close to the people using your software to relying on a filter, which is our partners. And on top of that, you actually also have internal teams inside your organization who believe something is very important. And those are the people you talk a lot with. On top of this, we live in a digital world where education is very short. People are used to products being up to date all the time. In fact, some of the best products out there are updated several times a day. Products like Spotify, GitHub, etc. Um, so, as a user, you actually want the product, you expect the product to be improved. You're not just satisfied with sending a change request and then getting something back saying, yeah, and Umbraco, we always appreciate feedback, blah, blah, blah. That's how it works, right? Not at Umbraco, of course, but everywhere else. Product people, we have two quotes they love. Here they are. The one is quoting Henry Ford, who said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. And the other one is Steve Jobs. A lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. That's great. But Henry Ford, that's more than 100 years ago. And you're not Steve Jobs. And even if you're so reality distorted that you believe you're Steve Jobs, you're not Steve Jobs at Apple. So I believe, I'm so tired of hearing these two quotes. Because the reality is, people don't care about faster horses and things they don't know about. How many are familiar with this chart? It's called the Law of Diffusion of Innovation. Basically, it kind of shows the adoption rate and of new products, and you put them into different categories. There's about 2.5% who always wants the next great thing. Even if you're very optimistic, you might be able to round it up to 16% who's really interested in the next big thing. But most users don't care about the next big thing. Most users, they just want something that works a little bit better than what they have right now. Because this is their day to day. They don't care about the future. They actually just need to get their job done, and they need products that help them get their job done. So, if you look at the quotes before, they're super arrogant. What it turns out, as product people, we're super stupid. We don't know what our users or customers want, and at the same time, customers actually have a very hard time explaining it. You know, there's plenty of companies that have user voice tools. We also in the product, we have a public feature tracker. You can suggest features, but it's very hard for us to understand them, and it's very hard for customers to actually qualify their ideas in ways that we understand. So what we need instead, or a better way, is participation. And this is where I come back to wisdom of the cloud. And how? It's not only about open source versus closed source, it's more about open or closed organizations and mindsets. And I made a chart. No, I made smart art. Ta-da! Yeah. Okay. Tough crowd. Okay. So at the worst of the worst, you have closed organizations with a closed mindset. So this basically means this organization who doesn't listen, and organizations that cannot be reached. So it's absolutely terrible. Then you can go from that to actually being an open organization, one that listens, one that you can get in touch with, but still has a closed mindset. So this is typically a product organization that listens to feedback but wants to do it all themselves. Then you can go from that to something that's a little bit better. It's actually still a closed organization, but they have an open mindset. They not only listen, they also invite people to participate. This is typically through user groups, R&D projects, etc. And then of course you have Nirvana, which is open organizations with open mindsets. What's really interesting about this is that Umbraco started here, although I have to be schizophrenic to claim that one person can be an organization. On reality distorted, so I'll claim that Umbraco was an open organization with an open mindset. Not consciously, but basically because I had no other choice. If Umbraco keep up with demand, just had to accept anyone who wanted to contribute. Then what actually happened was, turned out that we ended up in a case where we were still an open organization. We actually had a closed mindset. Not consciously, but simply because all of a sudden we were talking to each other internally in the company or internally in some of the open source teams, and we started to believe that we were very different, but we hadn't. I just showed you how many people is actually using Umbraco, how many people is involved. So even if we talk to 10 or 20 people, it doesn't mean that we actually have no mindset. Luckily, we've been working consciously about this and are now back at being an open organization with an open mindset. And once you have that, you can actually facilitate wisdom of the crowd. And I like to say, everybody's so obsessed with artificial intelligence. I have a dream that just 1% of all the resources in organizations spent on researching artificial intelligence would be used on collective intelligence, basically wisdom of the crowd. Because what's so cool about this is that then it's what's relevant right now that actually gets solved. Not only what you as a product company believe is relevant in the future. I like to call this async innovation, and I brought a couple of examples of how this works in Umbraco. So, as you probably know, over the last couple of years, we've been working hard at the next major version of Umbraco. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. It's going to have lots of awesome things for the 2.5%. But in the meantime, while all this development is going on, your customers still have needs. They still have things they need to do, like multilingual sites. So this is the European Council of the European Union. If you think that Europe is a mess, you have no idea. Because we have this thing called the European Union, and we have 25 different languages within the European Union, and we have a demand that everything is translated into 25 languages. There's a high rise in the middle of Europe where there's nothing but translators working around the clock to translate totally irrelevant information that nobody would ever care to read in languages nobody reads. They still need a digital presence. And they loved Umbraco, but Umbraco couldn't do multilingual out of the box. So what did they do? They made it possible to actually not only be multilingual, but actually be multilingual in 25 languages, including some really, really clever tools for handling these horrible workflows. For instance, what's really interesting about this is that once a press release comes out, it has to be translated to the three major European languages: English, German, and French. However, eventually, that press release or news item needs to be translated into a dialect of Welsh, maybe 2 years later, but eventually they will get to it. And their website and their own product actually have some really cool tools to facilitate this process. Again, not something that we came up with, but they came up with and actually started to share because they had the need and they had the understanding and they had a platform that allowed them to customize the tool. Another thing is personalization. How many here from clients who need personalization? Yep. And Umbraco doesn't do personalization, so what do people do? They make it do personalization. This is a really cool project called personalization groups that will allow you and your editors to personalize content based on time of day, visitor frequency, visitor properties, referrers, countries, etc. Here's another example of why async innovation is cool. How many are familiar with something called Microsoft Cognitive Services? Okay. So it's basically Microsoft's attempt of creating AI for the masses. It's a set of services that uses machine learning to process data that you can hook into. Something that absolutely didn't exist 1 year ago, but all of a sudden Microsoft releases this, and because Umbraco is such an open platform, people can start playing with it. So how many have ever tried to have a media library that was perfectly organized when the customer got it, and then a year later you're like, what is this? So here's a cool demo that uses artificial intelligence to analyze what's in the photos and automatically move photos into folders that matches whatever's in the photo. So in this case, it takes a little bit longer than normal upload, but you see I upload a couple of photos. In this case, this is something called soccer, very popular in Europe. We like to call it football, even though we don't use our hands. I know it's really weird. Here's another example of American cuisine that's automatically identified by artificial intelligence, and because it's about food, it automatically gets into a folder of food. It's completely transparent. You don't even know you're using third-party products because Umbraco can be customized, completely altered to the things we don't know about as we make the product. So what we like to say in Umbraco is that we don't have a lot of features, but we have a feature ecosystem. That includes that you can share. We have a great sharing culture in the community. It means that the features that are created is actually relevant because we have not created in labs, but they're created based on real world scenarios. And then we also have a way to distribute them and install them from within the project. And what's really cool about this is that even the most complex scenarios can be seamlessly integrated into Umbraco, so you don't even know that you're not using Umbraco. Here's an example from what's, I guess, Best Buy in Scandinavia, an electronics store called Power. This is a horrible editor experience. Yet, nonetheless, what they're actually doing here is working with data in SAP live. So it gives editors that can actually manipulate SAP data for the needs of a campaign, and you can even drag products directly from the SAP database with up-to-date and live pricing and stock information into the grid editors. We don't even know that their editors don't even know that this is not an out-of-the-box thing with Umbraco, because of the flexibility with Umbraco. It doesn't rely on what we believe you should do, but we actually open up Umbraco so you can bring whatever things you need to do digitally and have a really nice editor experience, at least in this case. So what we like to call this is best of breed. So maybe you've heard about the idea of suites versus best of breed. And the idea is that when there is so many options out there, and I know humans hate choices. As humans, we just want the solution served on a plate. But if you actually want to be really, really good at digital, you need to team up with someone who's doing this for you. So in that case, it's the responsibility of the partners, of you, who can help guide your clients not to use features in the CMS, but to use best of breed out there in terms of marketing automation, e-commerce, etc. And this is possible because of Umbraco's flexible APIs and great integration points. The only problem is, how do you discover these things? And once you've discovered them, how do you integrate them? And it's one of the things we're working on now. We are starting to create official partnerships with some of these vendors, both third-party vendors, but also community extensions. And we're bringing them into what finally is going to be called an app store. It's not to replace the package repository, but it's sort of a curated, certified place of extensions from Umbraco that can help you do the things that Umbraco cannot do. So we can take people who are passionate about e-commerce, about personalization, about marketing automation, as we are about CMS, and bringing them into Umbraco and making it really easy for you as partners to give the best of breed experience for your customers. It's going to be launched early next year. That's two things we're doing now, right? So we're doing open source, we are doing best of breed, and then we also believe that time to market should be a unique selling point for Umbraco. In fact, we believe that all of the things that people have come to learn from making digital products should be applied to digital projects. What I find very frustrating is that a lot of digital projects are still done the same way as they were 5 or 7 years ago, even though people insist on them being very agile. You might be agile within phase one of the project. You don't have an agile approach to the client-partner relationship, which is silly because developer time is super precious, right? There's a shortage of developers. It's only going to get worse. And developers shouldn't spend their time on tedious tasks. You should be spending time on things that actually create value. On top of that, you only learn when you go live. You don't learn in a lab. So the more you go live, and the sooner you go live, and the more often you go live, the more you learn about what works in the real world. And finally, we believe that you shouldn't spend time worrying about keeping Umbraco up to date. It should just be handled without you doing anything. And of course, what I'm plugging shamelessly right now is Umbraco Cloud, because we actually believe that's a very cool thing in the Umbraco, as a unique selling point for Umbraco. So the idea with our cloud platform is not about hosting. It's about predictability and speed in projects. It's that creating new projects should be super fast. That the pricing model should be completely transparent. You shouldn't worry about that. That it should be easy to collaborate within teams, also across environments. That whenever you want to go live, you just click a button. No content freeze, no going live as a project. No, it should be nailed down to just clicking a button. Because if we can nail that, then you will be much more interested in going live constantly with experiments, and you're going to learn much more. Because you're not doing this in the lab, you're actually putting things out live, listening to feedback, monitoring feedback on how users are using the website, and then quickly adapt to that. And then, of course, finally, you should have automated updates. We started on this journey 3 or 4 years ago, and we really have a lot of great success stories now, including, I just brought a couple of them, TCG players who you probably don't know, but maybe you have kids and they have Pokemon cards. That's TCG. They run more than 900 projects on Umbraco Cloud, and they're rolling out updates to these projects with a single click. So this means that they can have lots of different websites, but the main features are developed in one place and can be rolled out extremely easily. That's anything from new features to just patch updates or security updates to what we've done. Scandinavian retailer like Walmart or Co-op, they reduced their time to market for campaigns. It used to be massive projects. They used to use all sorts of products out there randomly. Now they have what's called a baseline on cloud, so they can click a button and they can create a variant of their baseline within minutes and launch a new campaign complete with integration to their CRM systems, etc., without reinventing the wheel every single time. And then finally, we're seeing a new generation of Umbraco partners. I have to admit, it's been harder than expected to move keys for existing partners. Of course, you have existing workflows, and Umbraco Cloud was definitely not flawless in the beginning. But we're seeing a new generation of Umbraco partners for whom Umbraco Cloud is just how it's always been. They're rolling out new projects super fast, again, because they have these baselines. So despite that all projects you do for clients is completely unique from ground up, in many cases there's a lot of things that are the same. And these agencies, they create baselines for different types of projects that they can update, and then whenever they need to create new projects, new customer projects, you get a head start, and again, the customers' money spent on things that are really new and generate real new value for the customers rather than doing things all over again. Also, much more inspiring for your developers to work on. So that's cloud. So if you haven't used it, I definitely encourage you to give it a try again. It's actually awesome, and it can really give you a competitive edge compared to the market. So that was a little bit about what's already there. Then what's next? So just recap our vision again. We want to help you deliver delightful digital experiences by making Umbraco friendly, simpler, and social. Following that and following what I've been saying so far, you can say that the engine behind great digital experiences is not the tool, it's great content. In other words, great digital experiences is more about content and less about engineering. And first and foremost, great digital experiences is not just websites, it's everywhere. And that's why we earlier this year introduced Umbraco Headless. We launched it in beta at Toggarten. And the idea with Headless is to have the same wonderful Umbraco experience that you already know. So the same back office, but this time as a pure SaaS offering. The reason it's called Headless is because you have editor experience, but you don't have a rendering engine for website, for instance. All you have is a great API for getting that content and delivering that content across platforms. On top of that, we built some really great client APIs to make it super fast and easy to consume Umbraco data, either in the .NET stack or in JavaScript, both as native JavaScript and also as Node.js. And then you can inject content everywhere. And just to give you an example, and I'm sorry if some of you have seen this before, here's a very simple Umbraco installation. It's for chatbot. So in this chatbot, I can create some intents, and then I can create replies based on keywords for those intents. I'm using something called NIELS AI, which is, again, artificial intelligence from Microsoft to understand the intent of what a customer asks, and then find keywords. This is the 15 lines of code it takes to integrate Microsoft's AI technology for chatbots with Umbraco content from Headless. And the result is that I can then deploy a chatbot more or less anywhere. In this case, this is our internal chatbot where we use Slack, and I can ask it questions, and it will understand the intent of the question, even though how weird my question is. It will find keywords, and then it looks up those answers directly from Umbraco Headless. And by the way, if you want cheap hotels for Toggarten, here's the pipe. No. Anyway, this is Slack, but what's really cool is this could have been Alexa or Google or whatever as well. In fact, the use case for Headless is pretty much anything digital. So we now have more than 600 beta testers of Headless, and they're doing all sorts of crazy things. Mobile apps, pure JavaScript websites. So this is people who are pure front-enders, doesn't know anything about .NET. They use Umbraco as this cloud offering to create their content, and then they consume it from JavaScript, and they deploy it basically anywhere using the tools they already know, which is something that I find super interesting. We also see pure single-page applications where you don't use Node to consume the data, but you actually consume the data in pure JavaScript directly from headless. Those are some examples of chatbots, even in line of business apps, but also we are seeing some customers launching pure .NET Core websites that then consume content from headless. So it's really, really funny to see how people are starting to use Umbraco in all sorts of weird ways. You've always been able to do this with Umbraco. The problem was it took a talented team of a backend developer who was really good at creating services and secure services. It took someone who knew everything about Umbraco. You had to install and deploy this, and then you needed someone to consume this, for instance, a pure front-end developer. With Umbraco Headless, you just need a pure front-end developer. You just need someone who's an expert in whatever channel that digital experience exists in, and then they can easily consume Umbraco data with just a few lines of code, not having to know anything about how Umbraco works. If you haven't tried Headless yet, I encourage you to do that. You can go to umbraco.com/headless and have a free trial. Right now it's unlimited, it doesn't expire, and then we would love to have feedback. We're planning on launching Headless early next year, and we really appreciate all the feedback we get from all these beta testers who are using Umbraco in ways we've never imagined before. So that was Headless. Now, before I end, let's talk about the stuff for the 2.5%. Because as awesome as it is to have all this basic innovation, what's really cool is it also allows us as a vendor freedom to then refine all these great ideas from the community into a new stable form of Umbraco that can take us to the next level. And of course, what I'm talking about is Umbraco 8. And it's no longer vaporware, it exists. It's incredible, and also later today, you're going to be able to see a really cool end-to-end demo from Stefan, one of the architects behind it. And what 8 is bringing is three things. It's variance, infinite editing, something we call content apps. I'm going to show you what it is. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about our new release flow for 8. Because we want to make sure that we release it when it's ready. And what we want is real feedback on the features we're creating. We don't just want people to play with it, as we've seen in the past with major Umbraco versions. We want to have very focused release tracks where we then can release a version and ask people to specifically test, get feedback from these features. And the three tracks we've identified is an editor track, because if there were no editors, there would be no Umbraco. So we need an Umbraco 8 that's even simpler to use for editors than ever, and we need to make sure that we deliver on that promise. Once we have a product that editors will love, we move on to what we call the partner track, which is people implementing Umbraco. So that's not just partners, but we just call it the partner track. The idea is that this is where we focus on making it as awesome as possible to implement Umbraco. Because once you have editors who decide to get Umbraco 8, then there's market for partners to actually provide implementations from partners. Then following that, we have what we call the contributor track, which is about extending Umbraco new functionality. And again, we're going to release versions of Umbraco 8 or releases of Umbraco 8 targeted specifically at extending Umbraco and ask for this to be tested. And once we've done that, release time. It's not as far as it sounds. So let's before I run out of time, let's take a look at the three major features of Umbraco 8. The first one, of course, being that multilingual is finally a first-class citizen. It's built straight into the core, and we've tried to make a user experience that, despite that we're adding complexity with variants, we actually have a simpler user interface, a simpler editor experience that we've had before. In this case, here's an example of a language in or a site in 3 different languages, Spanish, English, and French. With Umbraco, you can have duck types that are variant or invariant, and even on a duck type that has variants, you can have specific properties that are global across the languages, in this case the header text or header image, and then you can have properties that can be varied. So for instance, metadata doesn't in taxonomy doesn't make sense, isn't has variance, but of course text and maybe even images make sense that will be added specifically to these languages. With Umbraco 8, you can either edit a language at a time, or you can actually edit languages side by side, which makes a much easier workflow for translators as well. The best part of this is that it's so easy to build multilingual websites. And I'm not going to be taking any limelight from Stefan's session later, so you should definitely go check that out, and he will show you how that works. So now that we have more complex content, if you heard me talk before, you know that I'm obsessed about having a really nice, uninterrupted editor flow. Because I believe as an editor, you should be able, just like a great musician that uses a great instrument, to just be able to express yourself without being interrupted from the tool. So one of the things we've been very obsessed about with the Umbraco user interface is that you don't have to jump between sections in order to get your work done. With 8, we're taking it up to 11 with something we call infinite editing. And the idea is that you can basically go as deep into the Umbraco user interface without ever leaving where you started. And there will always be a breadcrumb or a trail taking you back to where you started. In this case, I'm uploading a couple of images, but maybe I want to update metadata or the props. And in this case, this is infinite editing at work. It's not a tiny pop-up window that opens, but it's actually a full editor experience with complete breadcrumbs back to where you started. And it can be as complex as in many levels deep as makes sense. So as we're seeing multilingual sites using complex content models such as nested content, stacked content, and grid, we can still provide a really nice, compelling editor experience and make sure that editors get the best conditions and best flows for doing their work. And in fact, it's not just editors. Here's another example of infinite editing at work. What if I was implementing a site and I need to manipulate the document type? I can do it in context of what I'm doing right now, and I can actually see the changes to my doc type happening live on my content without moving from section to section. Again, this is also infinite editing at work. We're super excited about this and really looking forward to also how this is going to be used by extensions built by the community. Then I mentioned best of breed. There's a lot of ways to extend Umbraco, but what I find most exciting about best of breed is that we can move from not only managing content, but also give editors the opportunity to actually understand their content and bring in tools that can provide insights to content for those editors. And for that, we're introducing something called content apps. It's basically taking all these third-party apps and making first-class citizens in the Umbraco editing experience. So what you see up here is me working with content, but because there's a form on the page, I can also immediately see any form entries that's associated with that page without jumping to a form section. I can see analytics data about how my content performs. And if I had governance tools or text insight tools, we could also analyze the content directly where I am. And in the same way, its search engine optimization tool could also give feedback at the exact place where I put the content.
So this is actually a way and a motivation for all these third-party vendors to bring their awesome tools directly into the Umbraco user interface. For editors, it will just seem like a completely integrated experience. So super excited about those three main features. And when, as I mentioned, when it's ready, but actually the first track releases, the first editor releases is actually coming this month. So you should start slowly to investigate Umbraco 8. We're going to be blogging a lot about how it works and what we would like testing and feedback. And we expect Umbraco 8 to be ready very early in 19. Super exciting. Finally, this is basically what makes the dependency in there. So I started with talking about the why. Now I believe I hope I've answered the how. And one final bit in our mission is the social thing. What is that? And of course, it's our culture. Um, there's a great quote from Peter Drucker who said, "Culture eats strategy breakfast." And what I love about Umbraco is that we don't just talk about having a culture, we really have an amazing culture of being friendly and of sharing not just knowledge, but also features with each other. And when it comes to an open source project, kindness is the currency uh, in this space. It's coined by the founder of Rails, David Heinemeier Hansen, and I really believe it's a beautiful quote. So when you're a part of the Umbraco ecosystem, whether it's online or today in real life, I encourage you to be a friend and use our values of trust, friendly, open, hungry, and respect in how you interact with people. If you're ever in doubt, we have a code of conduct as well. It's on our Umbraco.com, code of conduct that in a very, very simple way encourage you to be a friend and explain how you can do that using the values. So we ensure that Umbraco is not only a curious but also a safe and diverse place in a world to create. So finally, uh, if you like Umbraco now, 19 is going to be crazy in the best possible way. We're launching Headless. That means that gives you a very easy way to use Umbraco in any type of digital project. We're launching the App Store that are bringing certified third-party projects, marketing technologies, e-commerce solutions, etc., into Umbraco, and using content apps in V8 that's also released. It's all going to seem like one seamless integrated experience, which means that Umbraco can really compete with some of the biggest players in the market, while not providing a suite, but providing a best of breed, because we're still open and we're still as friendly as we've always been, and that's our DNA of Umbraco. And with that, I wish you an amazing Umbraco US Festival and hope to see you next year. If you have any questions, remember to fill out the forms, and I'll be delighted to answer them. Thank you very much.